When I came here, I came 1969. Wasn't too many Lebanese or Arab people around. When I used to go to the mall and just meet somebody speaking Arabic, like our hearts were open.
I first came to Canada in 1969.
We actually left Lebanon because of the Civil War. It was in 1976 when it was at its beginnings, that insurgence of the Civil War. It got really difficult, and my father had never wanted to leave Lebanon. He had a good job, and everything was great. In the middle of the night, we got up and we went to the port where he had a friend who worked. He smuggled us onto a cargo ship, and we went over to Cyprus and stayed there for a good month in a hotel, waiting for Pierre Trudeau to pass the Refugee Act, which would allow Lebanese into Canada.
All I remember is waking up the next morning, jumping on a truck. Believe it or not, our suitcases are filled in this little pickup truck. We're all jammed into it, and we're driving down to, not the airport, we're driving to the port. We're jumping on a ship that was taking us to Cyprus, and pretty much fleeing the country because of the war. We were scared.
I could hear shots being fired, people were screaming. I just remember being terrified.
It was a bad experience. We were really scared. We got to the airport, and thank God, as soon as I got to London, I knew I was safe.
I came to Canada 1985. I asked what is going on, and they told me you arrive in Canada on Canada Day. Leaving your home country and arriving in a new country on a very special day, a country that you're going to live in. Especially when you left your family back home. In the middle of the war, and just opened a lot of wounds. A lot of sad, but at the same time, good memory.
You know, times were tough in Lebanon. Still tough now. They really had nothing to work with. They can't speak the language. Everything is totally different. It's a culture shock. And then trying to run a business and try to succeed and get a home. It was a battle. It's a definite struggle, up and down, like a roller coaster.
They came here with no money in their pockets and just wanted to start something so they make lives for their kids better. In the first few years, it wasn't easy.
All of them tried to make kind of a group of people here that they knew, and tried to reconnect with their culture and listen to music and get together. And my dad, of course, came and started a business, and that's terrifying because I started a business and I speak English, I have a university degree, and my dad didn't have any of those things.
They wanted to better the lives of their children. They didn't want them to have to grow up in fear, or they wanted us to be more educated, and they just wanted to give us everything that they couldn't have.
I think how they inspire me the most is that they're completely selfless. Like, I look at what they did in this life. They did it for us, and they came believing not that they could have these things, but that maybe that their kids could have these things.
I learned English, for example, in school and watching Sesame Street, but my mom learned English with me too.
Raising us to their best between both cultures. It's inspired me now as a future mother to hopefully be able to give my children what they've given me. Now I currently teach in French, and I push myself every day because I think my parents came to this country. They were successful, they couldn't speak the language, and they made it. I can do it too.
I would never go to another country, not know anyone, and try to start a family and a business and become part of a community. Like that'd be too risky. And I've never been put in that position because they've done all the hard work for me so that I didn't have to take that risk.
In our early days, it was rough going. I came to Canada right at Boxing Day, at the mid of the winter, where I had to go out and search for a job. Went out knocking door to door and hoping that we'll be able to land a job. Sure enough, 2 weeks, 3 weeks down the road, I was able to get my first job at Moyer's Chocolate. Moyer's Chocolate, it used to be where the Metro Center is now. And that hosted about 600 employees. It's kind of hard But in a matter of about a couple of months, 3 months, I felt like I'm one of them. They took me in big arms, and
Lebanon is my heart till the day I die.
I remember the first time I went to Lebanon. I was 24 and I was married because my dad refused to take us. He didn't want us to see a war-torn country. And for me, it was already beautiful, even war-torn.
Walking under the grape leaf plant and just looking up at the sun and thinking like, wow, this is where my mom grew up. How loving and caring everyone was, like people that I didn't even meet before, just how affectionate they were towards me, and just the scenery and everything was just so breathtaking.
You know, if anybody ever has doubts of the existence of God in general, just go to Lebanon. You feel it.
What country in the world that you can go skiing in the morning and go to the beach in the afternoon in the same day?
I often wondered, what is it like? Why do people think it's so wonderful? What's amazing about it? And then you feel it as soon as you get off the airplane. I met an old couple at a funeral that I went to for one of my patients. And she said, where are you from? And I said, I'm from Lebanon. And they nearly fell over. This old couple used to teach at the AUB in Lebanon, and their kids were born there, and they're totally Scottish. Like, so you would not expect it in Halifax to run into like an 80-year-old couple that raised their kids in Lebanon. You know, they were telling me about all these places, and they're like, you're so lucky to be Lebanese. It's beautiful there. It's the pearl of the Middle East. When we were there, there was no war, and you should have seen it before the war.
There is this internal struggle of, you know, not really fitting in 100% in either culture. You go back to Lebanon, and you, as much as you love it, and I do, I love it when I go back there. I also miss Canada. When I come back, I feel like this is home. But at the same time, you long for the things that you're missing, those aspects of your life that are bound to your origins or your roots.
The family name is important, and where my parents came from and how they were raised, and that was important to pass that along to myself, my brother, and my sister. Living in Canada but being raised Lebanese is an obvious battle, and you really need to be able to cope with it and kind of live two separate lives almost. We share a lot of similarities with Canadians. I mean, we all want the best for our family, but we have different ways of living. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's two different worlds.
Our culture is very strong at home. You know, the love of Lebanon is spoon-fed to us. I had a love for it before I even saw it.
Growing up Canadian, I consider myself Canadian, but I consider myself so much Lebanese too.
It was confusing at times when we got a little bit older. I remember myself feeling torn between two cultures and not really knowing how to deal with wanting to be a little bit Canadian, but also trying to keep our Lebanese culture.
I used to feel shy maybe when I was younger to say that. You know, today I feel I'm a very proud Lebanese person.
I came here by myself. I didn't have any relatives or family, so to speak. I was 21 years old, and coming from a total different world altogether, it was an eye-opener, no doubt. And if it wasn't for the help of all the good people that are around us, that was the biggest help that we needed to go on.
They used to help the immigrants so much, and they used to teach us, the customers, you know, a lot of things. I learned a lot of things from the customers too.
They learned English through their customers, which is interesting too.
We were very welcomed and we were very accepted in our society, the Canadian society, where it wasn't for that good hospitality that they showed us, and they all wanted to teach you. They all want to make you learn things that you don't know.
It's my home. I love Canada so much. It's been so good to me. All my kids born here, all raised here.
The people in Nova Scotia, it's not just we will tolerate you because you're of a different ethnicity. The multiculturalism is embraced and encouraged. I always felt very welcome, ever since I was a young child.
I remember my dad talking about it just last night, actually, saying, you know, why would we ever leave such a beautiful country? But it's quite obvious.
I think we're very lucky to be Lebanese Canadian.
Right now, this is my home. Anybody ask me, I'll say this is my home.
I can't think of any other place other than Canada where you have that sense of belonging and love from the community.
I can't even imagine not being a Canadian anymore and what kind of life that would be like. I think I'd be like a lot of people in Lebanon and only wanting to move to Canada and start a fresh new life. The best of both worlds, I don't think it gets much better than that, does it?
Take the best from each culture and kind of ditch the worst.
I appreciate being a Canadian. You know, we have our parents to thank for that.
The war is not what everybody wants to remember, but sometimes it does good to remember, the good and the bad, because you can learn from the bad and you can make better from the good. I'm proud actually to be a Canadian, but I'm very proud to be a Lebanese Canadian.